Under the Hoodie is a podcast hosted by Scott Hoyt, where we have candid conversations with the founders and leaders shaping the fantasy sports industry. We unpack the real stories behind their wins, losses, and turning points along the way. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode, dropping every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Under the Hoodie. My name is Scott Hoyt, the host today of Under the Hoodie and the founder of Fantasy Sports Strategies. And I'm excited about today's show for a couple of reasons. One is we're going to talk about a technology that I believe is the most transformative piece of technology we've seen since the internet. We'll talk about that in a second. But secondly, our guest is someone who is engaged daily with this technology through the company that he founded in 2024. Chris Shreeve is the current co-founder and head of growth for Vokol. And I'm not going to get into on what Vokol does. I'll let Chris do that. He'll do a much better job than I will. So welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Scott. Really excited to talk about those two letters of technology that we'll get into today and share more about what we're working on at Vokol.
Yeah, hey, what I'd like to do to start with, Chris, is, and I always do this with all my guests, is kind of take a step back, go down memory lane, tell my listeners a little bit about who you are, your background, and take me up then to current day, if you don't mind.
Yeah, you got it. So, born and raised Seattle sports fan, 2026 Super Bowl champions. Been a fun couple of weeks. But I got my first job in sports. I was working in the golf industry with my dad. And then in college, I got my first real job at the Seattle Mariners. My dream job, right? I was in sales. I was in marketing. I was working for a team. But being up in Seattle, I was really drawn to the startup landscape and ecosystem and technology. So I was able to get into marketing technology, advertising technology. I worked with 10, 15 pro sports teams and college athletic departments. And then in my mid-20s, went off and started my first company. I was naive, like young entrepreneur, like, hey, I'll be able to figure this out. And our first business was a digital advertising agency. Started it with $1,000 in a bank account and worked at coffee shops with my buddy who I went to college with. But we learned a ton in bootstrapping a business. We built that company up to, 15 people, close to $1 million in EBITDA. And I was fortunate enough to exit that business in 2022, which got me started into the sports tech space. My next business was Locker Room Labs, which is how I got involved in the betting and fantasy and gaming space and supporting other founders in building prototypes and MVPs, going from 0 to 1 and creating technology. I really did that for two reasons. Number one, I needed to learn technology myself. If I ever wanted to be a founder of a tech business or a CEO of a software company, but I also saw a massive need and so much growth happening on the tech side of the betting, gaming, fantasy, and just broader sports world. So that all led me to where I'm at today. I met my business partner on LinkedIn who is following my content that I post sometimes and have a few followers up there on LinkedIn that I guess like to see what I post and what I talk about and kind of my unique opinion and perspective of the space. But everything's really been about tech and sports. And I haven't wavered from that. It's really been something that I've been steadfast in having be a part of my, my career. I'm fortunate, really lucky to be working in the space. But I think everything's changed in the last 18 to 24 months. And we'll get into AI, how that's impacted, my day-to-day, me as a business person, the sports world at large. But yeah, it's been a fun ride so far.
Thanks for that. And I think full disclosure for my audience is I've met Chris on a couple occasions, and it's never difficult for us to find 30, 45 minutes to talk about sports in general, but technology as a background. And I've always been very impressed, Chris, with what you've done and where you're heading. And let me kind of set the stage a little bit, if I could. As you know, the FSGA just held their winter conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was there, and there were some themes there that were front and center that I want you to make a comment on. And the consistent themes really centered around, in my mind, three things. One I would call content velocity. You heard the term speed all of the time, coming out everywhere. Personalization. The big P word was out there, and almost every panel I either listened to or sat on talked about personalization, talked about content velocity and speed. And then maybe the biggest one is what I describe as brand differentiation. Those three themes are always used to be nice to haves. Those are no longer nice to haves. Those are must haves. In my mind, they're called survivor tools. So when I first met you, one of the things that I was exploring in my head regarding the FSGA from last week is AI, and this is a question for you, is AI driven audio, is that one of the next major unlocks here?
I mean, we think so. And look, let's talk about some of those, some of those survivor tactics and channels here. I mean, AI is not going anywhere, but there's a lot of noise around it. And I always joke, like, I just wish we kept calling it machine learning, because the fact that we call it AI, it has a bit of this black eye to it, right? There's all of this fear mongering around AI taking people's jobs. And I think that fear has really seeped into to folks day to day. I was at a conference last year where it was really early on in Vokol's journey. And I was talking to somebody and they said, look, I think what you're doing might be one of the most unique things I've ever heard. And I want to bring this to my team. I can't do it though, because I'm worried it'll impact my job. That was a real fear last year.
Yeah.
But I think the tide has turned. I think folks, as fans, as consumers, as users, are seeing the power of AI in their day to day. And they, quite frankly, were using AI before they even knew that it was AI, right? There's AI and personalization recommendations when they're watching Netflix, when they're searching on Google. There's automation, right? When we talk about audio or voice, right? We've been talking to Siri and Alexa for a decade, right? We've been calling into call centers for longer than that. But folks are using ChatGPT and Perplexity. They're getting value out of AI mode when they search in Google now. Finding information has never been easier. Creating content has never been faster. That creates a lot of distraction and a lot of noise. But as it relates to what we're doing, I think that Gen AI and automating content, has really focused in two areas. It's creating more written content, right? Using data, creating more written content. Written content feels like it's getting commoditized now. And look, I don't agree with the job loss and the way that some media companies have handled incorporating AI. We think that AI should be a force multiplier, generating more jobs, allowing people to create more revenue, generate more content to engage more fans, not just as an expense line item or a cost saver. But then you've got folks trying out AI video and creating funny videos on Sora. And that's great. That's cool. But I think people are missing the boat on audio. Sports fans listen to so much audio per week. There's, 8 hours on average is what a sports fan might listen to in any given week, whether it's podcasts or sports talk radio still, right? Like there's so many different channels to listen to audio. But I think what we'll talk more about today is how can we empower sports marketers to create audio at scale? How can we create personalized user experiences with audio as that core medium? And how can audio transform written content or static experience on site and in app to create a more dynamic, conversational experience online.
Yeah, and thanks. I mean, that's a great overview, and and you and I have chatted about audio, and I always think in the back of my head, okay, well, audio has always been there; it's existed forever. Podcast, for one, we're doing one. Radio, live streams, it's all there. And now with AI powered sports audio, why now? What drove Vokol to say this is the moment for us?
I think for any founder that's looking to build something new and transformative, you have to look at the signals that are going on in the space. You mentioned audio, right? Audio is a core tenet of the fan experience.
Yeah.
We listen to audio, we talk about sports, right? That we listen to broadcasters, talk about the game, right? Like I sit around during fantasy football season and listen to hours worth of discussion, right? About hundreds of players, just hoping that they talk about my two quarterbacks that I'm deciding to stream that week. But all that audio is more mass media centric, right? It's long form. And if we think about how people, particularly younger fans, are consuming content, it's short form, right? It's digestible, it's quick, it's 90 seconds. Now that's not to say that we want to replace long form. That's not our goal at all. But how do you personalize audio content at scale with the human bandwidth constraints, right? How would you create a personalized audio experience without AI? You haven't been able to until now, but these AI voice models, they sound incredible, right? They have emotionality to it. We can voice clone content. Just this week, Joe Lemire from Sports Business Journal, who puts out a daily buzzcast on SBJ, one of the most prominent sports business publications in the world, where we cloned his voice and we enabled him to be able to do his morning buzzcast using an automated voice with his ideas and his concepts and insights and content. But we talk about personalization. I don't think anyone's done it really effectively. I don't, particularly in the sports betting, fantasy sports ecosystem, my user experience on these sites and apps and platforms certainly isn't personalized. Maybe an email that I get sent has my first name. Maybe when I go into a betting app, it filters by the city that I'm in. That's not personalized, right? It's segmented, right? It's more category based. So we think about all these different puzzle pieces. And when my business partner came to me and said, "Hey, Chris, I want you to take a look at this idea, this concept. What if we could empower sports marketers to take a medium of content that fans love, audio, pair it with this incredible voice technology, and create personalized podcasts tailored to your individual fandom for millions of fans every single day?" I said, "Sign me up."
Well, and frankly, you and I talked about this, that makes audio strategically different in the world of really what I call social overload. And there's a ton of that. And you and I talked about that. And I do think it does strategically set you differently than what we've seen before, especially in the fantasy sports arena, maybe even the betting arena somewhere down the road, but sports in general. And I know that you guys are engaged in really sports as an umbrella, but you also look at the gaming side of this and the fantasy side of this. Is there any one particular area that you think that audio clicks better than the other?
Well, we like to think that whether it's marketing communications, social voiceover, on-site content, short form podcast, or even, personalization at scale, that audio can can live kind of everywhere in that marketing ecosystem. Whereas I think video and AI generated highlights, that only serves a purpose of it, right? Like the game itself is only a small portion of where conversations about sports happen, right? It's 365 days a year, 24/7 that people are talking about sports. So if we can transform static content online into conversation, if we can turn an email, something as simple as an email, right, that everybody does. Well, it's easier than ever to start a newsletter, right? I get hundreds of emails every single day. And what do I normally do? Delete, swipe, see you later, right? Well, we just ran a campaign with a pro sports team in the NWSL last week, and our audio got a 15% click-through rate.
Great. Wow.
Now an email click-through rate might be 1%.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. When fans of this team listen to audio that just transformed an email, right? And all the different click-throughs to the site and all the different promos and discounts and calls to action. We took that content and in less than a couple of minutes turned it into a 3-minute short form podcast. If a fan listened to that audio, they clicked on the CTA button, 15% click-through rate. Now, when you start to think about it, our concept, our vision is if we can get you to listen to content that's conversational, that's short form, so you don't have to scroll through pages, click on links, navigate banner ads on a page, right? We can just give you the information that you want in a format that you love, audio. We're starting to prove that not only will it drive more engagement, but it will drive more commercial value for the brand. And I think that's the big unlock here is everyone talks about, AI to scale content creation, to lower expenses, to increase output. The way that we're thinking about it is that it drives engagement that converts to commercial value for the business. I think that's an important two-prong sentiment is that this drives revenue, not just this saves money.
And it provides that differentiation that is so desperately needed in our industry when you're trying to do something new. And AI, as you know, is in everybody's top of mind, and it will be for a long time. I'm going to step back just for a second because you said something there that made me think about this. And I'm a marketing guy too. I'm an old marketing guy, and I love to touch things, see things, hear things, feel things. If I was running, it's a hypothetical. If I was running a fantasy platform today, how would I use this tomorrow? And let me just throw a couple ideas out here and you tell me whether or not this resonates. If I was going to do this tomorrow, could I use this to power personalized lineup advice? Could I use it for my waiver wire updates? Could I use it for maybe betting specific insights, betting, audio insights? Is there geo-targeted promotions that are available? Anyway, I'm throwing those things out there. All those speak to some of the personalization that you just described. But could you maybe make a comment on that and just let me know what you're thinking about?
Yeah, so I think there's two ways to look at it. Number one, you have marketing content and marketing communications, and then you have user experience, right? On-site, in-app. So we really look at those two things separately, but there's a lot of overlap. So on the marketing communications front, right? You have a fantasy app, maybe it's DFS. You're creating all this content that lives on social. You have email lists. You're trying to create YouTubes. You're creating all this content that lives outside of your app. What we want to do is bridge the gap from all that external content to the in-app user experience. Now, if you think about this, and this is my experience, like I go into my fantasy app and I see my players and I'm trying to make a decision about who I want to start sit, who I want to pick up on my waiver wire. But in the app, I have the opportunity to read a couple of paragraphs and maybe watch a video or two. But what do you normally do? You go outside of the app. I go to ChatGPT and Perplexity. I'm listening to a podcast. I'm getting my multimedia everywhere else except for in the app. Because when I go in the app, it's a bunch of words and numbers, right? But there's no context. There's no conversation. So what we want to do is we want to turn a player bio, right? A box score, projected stats. We want to turn all of that into a conversation. We want to turn that into contextually relevant short form audio that someone could go, here's these 5 players. I'm going to listen to a minute of audio on each of them. And then I'm going to make my decision because I've been given the context, right? I've been given the details and the information. So that's one way. The other way is personalization. And it's exactly what you mentioned. But I think what LLMs and AI prompting has uncovered is that there's a new way to think about personalization. The old way is integrate with a CRM and first party data and deterministically match that this user bought this thing or is from this geo. And so let's make some assumptions based on this first party data that we have and try to serve them a personalized content, right? Personalized XYZ. But I think what prompting has shown us is that if you enable fan or user generated prompting, that they'll tell you what they want. You don't have to guess, right? So what if the fan could create a personalized podcast? What if they could say, here's the 2 players I'm thinking of picking up using data from you, blank fantasy company, right? Or betting company. Give me some information on these 2 players to help me make my decision. And then 60 seconds later or less, you get a 1, 3, 5 minute personalized audio that answers your question, exactly what you're looking for. Oh, and by the way, it's sponsored by an affiliate partner. And there's an ad read, right? So now you're giving the person what they want, when they want it, in a medium that they want it in. And you can layer in an ad read, a CTA, a sponsorship. And if we continue to prove that by listening to that audio, it can be more engaging, provide a differentiated user experience, and convert at 15% or thereabout, we've created an ecosystem where fans want to come back for more.
Yeah, that user experience is probably mission critical in anything you do going forward. And the personalization piece is you and I've talked about before, is pretty interesting. Is there any compliance from a compliance standpoint? Because this industry is fraught with absolutely have to be very, very mindful of the regulatory environments that we live in. Does the AI audio, does that have to stay accurate and responsible and all that, especially when you're giving that out in real time?
Yeah, definitely. And we take that really, really seriously, particularly in some of these regulated markets, right? Obviously fantasy sports is going to be a little bit different than sports betting, which is different than the wild west of prediction markets. And
that's another topic we could sit here and talk about
maybe another day. Maybe
another day, another week.
Another day.
Yeah.
But particularly within our platform, we give the controls to the user. I think a lot of people think that Gen AI, because of some of the tools that they've used, that you're beholden to what the AI is going to create. And so we allow our clients to have control of what goes in and what comes out. Part of that is seeding your platform with brand guidelines. What to say, what not to say. What's our brand tone? What's the voice that we want to speak in? what are taglines and slogans that we use, and what are some no-goes in terms of the type of content. Don't say guarantee. Don't ever imply that this is a sure thing, right? So we've built some of that into the platform already, but then each partner has the ability to customize their brand guidelines and any rules and regulations that they want to incorporate. And before any of the audio goes out, other than some of our personalized experiences that are real time, you get to review the script, edit the audio, and make any changes that you want before distributing it on site, downloading the audio, putting it on Spotify, wherever the audio may live.
Yeah, and I tend to always migrate back in my head, because this is my wheelhouse, is the whole marketing and business strategy. And I talked about this in Vegas last week in my panel, is that as you build trust in whatever you're doing, that ultimately will equal loyalty. And then loyalty becomes a marketing tool, which is either retention or acquisition, or even better, a monetizational tool, or all three. And I think what audio does for me, it deepens that fan loyalty experience. Is that an easy way to say it, or a good way to say it, or is that something different than how you believe?
No, I think any marketing tool, I think when you think about retention, right? And look, I think content a lot of the time, particularly organic content, is all about engagement. It's about retention. Now your paid strategy, right? Your advertising, your user acquisition through affiliate, like that's a whole different numbers game, right? But when it comes to content, is this engaging? Is it meeting the fan where they're at, right? I think that gets said a lot too, right? The right message to the right fan at the right time. But I've been in the advertising world for 10, 15 years. We were saying that 15 years ago, right? And so I don't know that until now there's really been a technology, not just us, but others building in AI, that can truly automate the creation of tailored content at the level that we all hoped, right? That we all wanted. I think now it's time, right? Now all of these talking points from folks on stage, people on podcasts, right? Saying we really care about the fan experience. We really care about the digital, the digital user experience of our fans. And we're hell bent on creating more personalized, user experience for our fans. And then I think about my experience using betting apps, fantasy platforms, my favorite sports teams. Scott, do you think your media experience on a day-to-day basis in sports is personalized to you?
Well, yeah. You and I've talked about this, and I believe that anything you can do to enhance and personalize that user experience will be a differentiator. I don't care what you're using. I really don't. And in our industry, especially in sports in general, I think that becomes so critical, because there is so much noise in this market. And how do you break through that? And that's why when you and I first talked, is the whole audio thing and using it powered by AI is so genius that why haven't other people thought of that? And I'm thinking, well, maybe they just did, and you guys are taking the lead on that, which I think is pretty cool. But speaking of which, I want you to kind of put on the Vokol hat for a second. Give me your best 2 to 3 minute sales pitch on Vokol, because I want my audience to hear just how good you guys are.
Well, look, I think we talked a bit about it. Fans are looking for immediate information. They are scrolling online. They are listening to podcasts. They're watching videos. There's never been more competition for content. But we want to empower sports marketers to take back control from those third-party platforms, right? we want you to create a user experience on your owned and operated properties that meet the needs of today's fan. We believe that by using automation to create conversational audio content that is short form, tailored to the fan, that can tell more stories, right? That can cover more topics, that can have more breadth and depth, giving you a tool to create engaging conversational audio content at scale that converts. I mean, it checks off all the boxes, right? I joke with people, we didn't sit around like, all right, we should create an AI company that drives fan engagement, that can increase revenue, that can be a sponsorable asset for teams and leagues, that's AI driven and Gen AI and includes personalization. We just happen to create a platform that we feel like checks off all the boxes for sports marketers today. But you've got to be willing to take a leap. You got to be willing to do something different. And we want to be a trusted partner that can enable you to say, hey, look, I want to meet fans with content where they're at. I want to truly personalize the fan experience. I actually do want to tell more stories in a medium that resonates with fans and not just stick with the status quo. And look, last year I felt like we were maybe ahead of our time. Maybe we were early, but this year I think we're just in the nick of time. And being sports centric, and only working on sports. And believe me, we've got lots of folks that are wondering why we aren't doing this for other industries, is because we just care about improving the fan experience and driving commercial value for businesses in this space. And that's all we care about, and that's all we want to work on.
Yeah, not to put you on the spot, because I think I've heard bits and pieces about some of the cool announcements, some of the cool partnerships. Any new partnerships you want to share with the audience?
Well, we've got new leagues that we're working with, the new pro teams, U.S. sportsbook, new media companies. I think that in the next 3 to 6 months, you're going to see a lot more companies that are going to be excited to share that they're working with AI businesses. I think in the last several months, I think there's been a lot of apprehension, right? There's been pilot programs and people wanting to test and kind of like dip their toes. Like, we're seeing a massive influx of interest for new tools that are truly going to engage the fan in different ways. So we'll be showcasing some really exciting new things. Our personalization product we've put right on our homepage. So if you want to go in and just kind of see what a really simple user experience is that can generate customized audio content in less than 60 seconds.
Here's an example of Vokol in action. We've prompted our topic, chosen voices, and personalized more about how we want the content styled. Enjoy this breakdown of the upcoming NFL draft.
Fernando Mendoza is the top quarterback prospect, but the Browns could trade up to steal him from Las Vegas. Analysts call it a near certainty.
If the Jets take safety Caleb Downs at 2, that's the highest safety drafted since 1991. 6 interceptions and elite run stopping make the case.
For deeper breakdowns, head to the Fantasy Sports Strategies website. All the metrics are there.
We subscribe to the build in public and just ship it.
And just so you know, I did try it, and I'm telling you, it's great. I would highly encourage everybody to just go try it out. Even if you're not a technology wizard, figure it. It's easy. It's really easy to navigate. Hey, Chris, I want to talk about. I love talking about the future, and I think AI is going to be a permanent fixture in our future. But let me just give it another. I love hypotheticals in future. So if I'm a CMO at a fantasy or betting company listening to this right now, what should I be experimenting with right now?
Vokol, number one. Look, I think that internally there's a lot of value, just operational efficiency, like choosing a tool that you want to use, building custom GPTs to help you sort through ideas and maybe write content and come up with presentations and like all that operational efficiency stuff. Like, I think that you should have some corporate governance with your team. Like, you should choose a preferred LLM that you use and house everything. But really the big unlock is going to be, how does that manifest in front of the fan? Right. And so there's a line in the sand there. Right. And jumping over that line is where the real innovators, the risk takers are going to get out ahead and get in front of the market. And I can tell you this, there are companies that you and I would think are super old school. They're not thinking about new technology. They are in the weeds, hiring AI strategists internally and figuring out how to solve for this now. But I think that, ensuring that you have great content and data and insights and information, like that's the foundation of how AI can scale. If you don't have something proprietary, a great algorithm to provide bet recommendations or a lineup builder or, anything like that, figure out how you can scale technology production, ship product faster using AI, AI tools to write code. But really the biggest unlock is going to be, how are you bringing more value to the fan, to the user? And I'd really, really encourage people to think about, if more written text, if more words and numbers on your site or in your app is going to be the way that people are consuming content in the next 3-5 years, maybe even in the next 1 to 2 years. That's our big bet, is that when you go onto a website, you're either going to talk to it, or you're going to listen to it, or you're going to watch it. And I think we're a lot closer than many people think to that reality.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with what you guys have built. I think you are changing the way that fans experience sports, and I think it's the way of the future. And I applaud you guys for what you've brought to the marketplace. I think I always try to end with one last question, final question, and it's completely personal. What's your favorite sports movie?
Oh, my favorite sports movie. I'm gonna go with Tin Cup. I'm a golfer. My dad worked in the golf industry, so as I was growing up, like, Tin Cup was before your Happy Gilmores, and some of the other kind of funny golf movies, But Tin Cup to me was just always a cool movie to watch with my dad, being in the golf space. So, Happy Gilmore is a close second for my golf fans out there, but I'll go with Tin Cup.
It's a great movie. I mean, if there's a sports movie, I'll watch it. I like them all. I'm a big Moneyball fan because I'm a big baseball guy, and I think you're going to make my producer really happy that you're a Seahawks fan, because he's a huge Seahawks fan, as I am. I spent some time in Seattle as well, so love the Seahawks. So I'm sure you guys are still sitting on cloud nine for a while, and will be. Hey, Chris, I really do appreciate you taking the time. We could have talked a lot longer. I'm very cognizant of people's time and effort here. But tell people how they can get a hold of Vokol and get a hold of you. Talk about your website, please.
Yeah, you can go to Vokol AI. It's VOKOL. I'd encourage everybody to go and prompt our personalization widget directly on our site and envision what that experience could be like for your users, for your fans. Because we white label it, we customize it to your brand. So I'd love to get people's feedback on the personalization widget. And I'm on LinkedIn all day, every day, commenting, fighting off the AI skeptics. and trying to just share my opinion on where I think the world of sports media and technology is going.
Yeah, I would share that sentiment that Chris is on LinkedIn a lot and has some great insights. I read them all the time, every day, and I encourage everybody else to do that. Chris, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for coming on as a guest of Under the Hoodie. Do it again. Let's do it again. I'm sure there are lots of things that we've missed that we could be talking about, should be talking about. And I suspect in 6 months, some things will change again and there'll be something else to talk about. So again, thank you so much for your time, your insights. Loved chatting with you. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
Thank you.